What's up everyone, Clark Glassford, founder of My Practice Interview, where I help you get hired. Today we're talking about an interview question. They ask it to you, you're ready to go, and all of a sudden your mind draws a blank. You get stumped or you just don't have an answer to that question. You start to panic, you start to sweat. I want to teach you how to avoid all of that, how to play it super cool and know how to get through those questions, those tricky questions where you may not have an answer right away. And these few tips I'm going to give you today are going to show you exactly how to navigate that, which so many applicants find themselves in. And here's the best way to avoid it and look like a superstar, rock star in your interview. So before we get there, you're here for a reason. You're here because you're looking for interview advice, how to write a resume, how to navigate the interview, how to do all sorts of stuff to land the job of your dreams. You've come to the right place. Every single week I post new videos on different tips, different advice that I have from my 25 years of experience on how to land that job of your dreams. So like, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also in the links below is a copy of my free ebook called My Practice Interview. It's a great book that walks you step by step through the entire recruitment process, what you need to do to prepare, the types of questions you can be asked, how to answer those questions, the different landmines and pitfalls that applicants find themselves in, how to avoid all of that so you do land your dream job. It's free. You have no excuse not to download it right now. Just go to the links below. Quick, get it. It's yours. But you know what? We're starting to run out of time. We got to get going. So you ready? Here we go. So here we are in the interview. You've followed my videos, you've followed all my tips, and the interviewer asks you a question and your mind just draws a blank. It happens all the time. It happens to the most prepared applicants out there. They just can't quite think of an answer right away. So there's two scenarios here, and I'm going to go through both of them and give you some advice on both those. The first one here is, what if you just don't know the answer to the question? Here's two ways to tackle that. So if you get asked a question, you don't quite know the answer to that question, you can say, hypothetically speaking, if I was faced with this scenario that you've just presented for me, here's how I would approach that scenario. I don't have experience in this particular area, but here's how I would approach it to resolve this situation or answer the question that they're asking. That's one way to do it, hypothetically, to respond as to what you would do based on the information you have from the question and based on your best judgment. It's always better to be honest in the interview, saying you don't have the experience versus trying to make something up on the fly as if you did it, because usually they're going to find holes in your story and that just doesn't look very good. The other way is, if you don't have an answer and you really don't know how you'd respond to that question, just say, look, I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for that question right now. Let me give that some thought. I will get back to you at the end of the interview with my answer. So what that does is it buys you a bit of time. And at the end of the interview, you can go away, think about it, and then what I want you to do is come back with an email saying, to follow up to your question, which I didn't have the answer for, here is how I would respond or deal with that specific situation, or the experience you're looking for, whatever it is they're asking for, here's how you would respond. Here's the key piece that you need to understand about interviewers. What they want from you is your best answer. A lot of what you see in job descriptions and a lot of the different types of questions that interviewers are asking are for the perfect candidate. They're looking for the perfect candidate. Well, guess what? The perfect candidate doesn't usually exist. It's called a unicorn. It doesn't exist, and that doesn't exist in the perfect candidate. So as a trained interviewer, what I'm looking for is aptitude and attitude. So do you have the right attitude? Check. Do you have the aptitude to do the job that I'm hiring you for? Check. Then you've probably got my interest. Not everybody is going to be perfect on every single answer, every single experience, every single piece of education that they're looking for. They're trying to assess on your total package whether you will be the right fit for this role. So remember that going in. So just because you don't have an answer to a specific question and you're kind of sweating it and starting to get nervous, push that aside and remember that you've got a whole bunch of answers to other questions that are really going to highlight your skills, and that will offset perhaps the one answer that you weren't able to answer. So that's one way. If you get stumped on a question, you don't have an answer for it, those two tips there are the right approach to take. Now, there are times when you're in an interview as well, and you get asked a question and your mind just kind of draws a blank. You feel like you should have an answer, but you just can't think of it. So here are 4 things I want you to do if you find yourself in that situation, just to kind of take down the stress and think about a response. So first one, breathe. Just breathe. Take a nice deep breath, exhale, not like this. You don't want to do that in the interview. That's going to come across a little intense, but just take a nice kind of calm breath in that interview. Breathe in, breathe out, get that oxygen flow to your brain. That does a lot of times, that can be the simplest, most effective way to trigger your brain to come up with an answer for the question they're asked. So just take that breath, take that moment. Next part is just think about it. You're in an interview. Again, the interviewer's job is to try and get the best information out of you as possible. They are trained for a room that's quiet. It's okay to be quiet in the room. It's okay to have a bit of dead air in the room while you think of a response. So don't panic just because it's gone silent while you think of a response. Take the time to think about a response. 10 seconds, 20 seconds. Give it some thought. A lot of times with that breath that we talked about and taking a few moments to think about a response, something clicks, comes into your mind, and now you're ready to respond to that question. So take the time to do both of those things. Now, if you need to buy yourself some more time, the little trick is, gee, Mr. Interviewer, can you repeat the question? I just want to make sure I've heard everything correctly there and I can formulate the right answer. Ask for a repeat. That way, it gives you a little bit more time, lets you hear the question again because maybe you missed something in the question itself that will help trigger an appropriate response. So ask for a repeat. The interviewer will repeat that question. And then at the end of the day, if you've taken the deep breath, you've thought about a response, you've asked for a repeat, and you're still just drawing a blank, ask to come back to the question. That's the simplest way, because here's the thing with behavioral descriptive interviews. So those of you who don't know what behavioral descriptive interviews are and those types of questions, look here, look in the links below. I've got a playlist on all the interview questions and how to respond to those questions. You want to check that out so you understand behavioral interview questions. But when most interviewers ask those types of questions, which are tell us about a time when, that means you have to think back to a specific work-related experience and try and walk them through how you dealt with a very specific situation. That can be difficult when you're trying to think of a response on the fly, or they're asking a question that you hadn't anticipated in all your preparation. Again, preparation. Look at the playlist here and here on how to prepare for the job interview, really key, but it's all that preparation. So when they're asking for a question like that, it sometimes throws you off. So when you've had a chance to breathe, had a chance to think about it, had a chance to repeat the question, you just can't think of a specific example to answer those questions, ask them to come back. Here's why. As you go through the interview and you've asked them to come back to that question, you're building confidence as you go, you're answering questions like, okay, I'm getting into my groove here. But what's happening is in the back of your mind, your brain is a crazy thing that's thinking of an example. And I've personally witnessed this myself when I've been in interviews, and I've seen applicants do it all the time. They get to the end of the interview and their interviewer says, okay, we're gonna go back to that one question that you skipped over. They go back to the question, the applicant goes, oh yeah, here's an example. This is what I'm going to use. And if they don't quite have an example to use at that time, at least they know it's the end of the interview. They now can kind of relax, sink in, think about an appropriate response and get to it. So that's what you wanna do. Breathe, think, repeat, and come back. All 4 of those things do not cause you to lose marks. It's the way you work and interact with the interviewer so that they get the best information out of you and you deliver the best response you possibly can. So with that said, that's this week's tip. I hope you like it. It's a key, powerful tip onto how to navigate those moments where you're just in that panic situation. You can't quite think of an example. Play it cool, like I said. Follow the approach I've just given you here, and you will sail through that interview. Hope you've enjoyed. Remember, like, subscribe. Until next time, keep rocking those interviews.